I'm a flight surgeon, but I'm in like one of the coolest units ever. I'm a military intelligence unit. I've never been in a military intelligence unit before. My whole background's
Ooh.
been combat arms until I became a doctor. So this is like military intelligence in general is a very unique field to me. So I'm learning a lot from like all these soldiers running around. But our mission really is flying these fixed wing aircraft, intel wise, right? So there's like
Ooh.
a small little area within military intelligence that fly these cool, unique missions. And just like the whole unit overall is cool. So instead of going back to like an Apache unit, like I used to fly in that and would probably be a good fit, I now get to like fly around in comfort when I go fly in that. So
Oh my.
it's such a cool
Oh
assignment.
wow. That
The
was
pro-
so Air Force of you to say. I get to fly
it
in
really is.
comfort now. It's so nice.
There's
I get to have all the fixed wings aircraft. It's so cool.
I think if the infantry guy from like 20 years ago saw me now, he wouldn't know what to think.
Yeah?
I don't know how I ever was infantry, to be honest. Like I
I
grew
thought
up in
I thought that's what you were, honestly, from
I
seeing you because you do give a lot of
yeah.
infantry advice.
I do. That was a long time ago for me. I originally, when I joined the military a long time ago, I was in the Guard. I was going to do 4 years infantry. I was going every generation as far back as I know, served in the military, right? And I have a lot of cousins and I have a younger brother in that, and none of them really seemed interested in joining the military. So I was like, okay, one of us has to do this. So I was like, you know what? I scored really high on the ASVAB, and I was like, sure, like full send, let's do infantry. I knew I wanted to be a doctor, so I did 4 years infantry stuff, and then I graduated college, and I was like,
Wait,
maybe I
wait,
should go
wait,
do
wait,
active. Yeah,
wait. You joined infantry, knew you wanted to be a doctor. So you joined
yeah,
infantry, but you're like, I know I'm going to be a doctor.
100%.
Were
I
you
think
different than like the other infantry people around you? Because you sound so like locked in.
I've always been kind of locked in, right? My background, I was raised by my grandparents. I come from like an abusive background. And I think very early on in my life, I learned about the value of like hard work and determination, that kind of stuff. And they kind of followed me through high school. And high school, obviously did well in school, went to University of Wisconsin, as you can tell.
I
Um,
had no idea. I didn't
no,
put
no
that
idea,
together.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I normally don't wear a lot of this stuff. But yeah, I was like, I did the academic thing in high school, played sports, and did all this cool stuff. And so I've always been very like focused, career goal focused on stuff. And I knew pretty early on, middle school, everyone would always say like, you're great with people, like you like helping people, you're smart, like go be a doctor. Um, and that's kind of where I always aimed. So I knew very early on I wanted to be a doctor eventually. But yeah, when I went to college, University of Wisconsin, I was going to do 4 years. And I was just going to do some stuff that was fun, right? Like I didn't want to do like medical stuff or something I was going to do for the rest of my life. And that led me to infantry. So I went to Fort Benning. I guess it's now at Fort Benning again, with all the name changes.
Yeah.
Um, on a side note, I noticed Fort Bragg, they haven't even like painted over the number. They just put like a plate over it. They're like, well, I'll just unscrew this when it changes again.
Oh,
But yeah,
that's so really they just put it on top of it?
yeah, it's just like a plate that they put over it. Like the signs also, they also just put like a plate over it.
That
That way,
is
just keep going back
so
and forth.
funny. Oh
Uh,
my god.
so yeah, I went to basic training. So there was once a private Alan Vanier running around and doing cool stuff. And I graduated, and instead of going to medical school, I was like, you know what? Maybe I go infantry on commission side. I don't know if it's still the same for ROTC, but back in the day, like if you scored high enough on all your stuff, you're high enough on OML, you could pick your branch. And even back then, I come from an aviation family. I had to switch. I had to choose between like infantry and aviation, and it took me like a week or two to figure out. But I was like, you know what, infantry, I can always go to the civilian side, like fly in that, and that's what I did. I got my civilian pilot's license, and I chose infantry. I was like, you know what, special forces sounds really cool, and that's something that could be a really cool challenge to go do. Um, and very early on in my infantry career as an officer, though, I ended up hurting my shoulder and ended up herniating my disc in my back. And
Oh,
I,
Jesus.
it, the sweatshirt makes me look a little bulky. And saying that, like I'm only 5'11", and like the heaviest I've ever weighed is about 165, 170 pounds. And that's when drill sergeants forced me to eat twice a day, or like two meals, like every meal at basic. I just don't gain weight a lot, and I had to come to be somewhat realistic with myself about that goal of being special forces and what I would do on my body if I did make it and all that. And that's when I kind of figured out, like, you know what, aviation might be the best way for me. And that's when I resigned my commission and became a warrant officer in the Army.
Jesus.
And I remember,
God.
right? And that was the start of all this crazy career that a lot of people know about me here on TikTok, and a lot of people that know me personally in that. And I remember my branch, like I couldn't switch over as an officer because I still had 2 more years. And I was like, I told my branch manager, like, hey, I'm just going to go be a warrant officer. And I remember this quote from him directly. He's like, there's a snowball chance in hell, Alan, that's going to happen. I was picked up on the first board.
Oh, why did they say that you wouldn't have it?
It was very unusual back then for somebody to cross over like that. It was a little bit more usual in the aviation world. But if you think about the warrant officer community, one of the biggest things they have to worry about is, one, are you going to be a good commission officer when you're being a prior NCO on that, right?
Yeah.
Well, so you have this like dummy who's an infantry officer, like running around, like, okay, this guy's somewhat successful, like he's a mouth breather, but he's been successful, right? And then the second thing you have to worry about, especially for aviation, is like, are they going to pass flight school? Well, by then I already had my civilian pilot's license, so they're like, okay, he's crayons, he's a mouth breather, but like he's passed all the stuff. So I think that's why I was probably picked up. So I went off, I did the warrant officer thing for a little bit. I was in an attack recon platoon as an Apache pilot, deployed with them. And eventually it became a job. And it's something I've noticed over my careers that eventually I get to the point where I'm just like, this isn't super exciting to me. It's almost like that. I kind of always have to be stimulated somehow. And, the family was starting to grow, and like that, I still wasn't a doctor. So that was about that time when I decided to drop my packet for medical school. And I went to the military medical school at Walter Reed and did a little bit of ortho residency, and then came to Korea, and here I am. So
that is the craziest, like, I don't want to say like bottom to the top, but those jumps are insane. That is so crazy. That is okay. So you did infantry, you said Apache pilot.
Yep.
And then now orthopedic surgery.
Well, more like a flight surgery, not board certified in ortho yet, but that's my training. My background is orthopedic surgery, sports medicine, that kind of stuff. So that's why I do a lot of stuff in the clinic with for the more complicated cases than that. But and really what I use this for, I tell people a story, not so much to be like, oh, I'm so cool. And that it's really, it shows you that you only live once. Use all that time you have to do stuff that you're interested in. You don't have to like stovepipe. I think too many 18-year-olds come into the military like, I have to establish a job and I'm going to do it for the rest of my life and that kind of stuff. Have a little bit of fun with your life. You can switch stuff and you're going to be fine in that. So you just have to have like a good work ethic, work hard, know what you're going for, and you can do the same exact thing. So that's the biggest takeaway for all this stuff. It's not so much I have a cool career. Like, it's the fact that you can go do this stuff if you want.
No, that's so cool. And you got it all through the Army. And
the Army paid for all of it.
That's so cool.
I think since I've joined, I don't think there's one period of time where I haven't owed the Army something. So 3.5 more years.
Oh my God. Okay. So I have a question because a lot of people want to know, and like there's a lot of like advice, but you actually went through it. What was it like dropping your packet, going to like not being a doctor, deciding in the Army, okay, I want to go be a doctor. What was that like process like? And if you could like go back and redo anything or like hindsight knowledge for somebody that like wanted to do that or wants to do that.
I think so. The first takeaway for all this is there's going to always be people to tell you no, right? They're going to quote some regulation, wherever the case is. You have to know your regs. And even then, like a lot of these regs aren't built to be specific. They're built ambiguous for a reason. They're purposely built like that to allow for certain situations to kind of go through. So one person says no, there's somebody else that probably will say yes, right? I designed my career in such a way knowing that I eventually want to become a doctor. Knowing that each step of my career is going to be something that the military is going to need more of, right? Infantry, you can train infantry all day long, right? Now you can't train as many pilots. So back then we had a huge pilot shortage because it was GWAT. So like people were getting out left and right. So I knew that my sell to them was like, hey, like, sure, I could stay my time in the infantry and you can use me that, or you can go train me to be an Apache pilot and you'll have me for, at that time, it was a 6-year ADSO obligation. I did the same exact thing with medical school as well. I still had commitment for the flight stuff, but I was like, you know what's more valuable than if a pilot? Well, a doctor. Like we can't, back then before DHA, we had problems keeping doctors in then. And they were like, yeah, this makes sense. We'll keep you instead of keeping you for 2 more years as a pilot and you're going to go on the civilian side, become a doctor. Like we'll keep you for like 10 plus years for all this training and that. So, that's like how I positioned my career was incredibly important, because if you stovepipe yourself too early in your career, the military is going to keep you in that because it's just too expensive and valuable to keep there. But if you position yourself in the right way, you can more easily do this stuff. Doesn't mean it was easy. I almost did not go to medical school. My branch manager as an Apache pilot initially supported my decision. So I did all this money and did my MCATs and applied and did all these interviews.
Mm-hmm.
And then at last minute, he's like, you know what? We can't really afford to lose you, Alan. And I suddenly end up on orders going to instructor pilot's course en route to Fort Riley to redeploy to Afghanistan.
Oh
and I
my
was like,
God.
hey man, like you and I had this deal. And he's like, well, you know, stuff changes. Lucky for me, the branch manager that managed the Apache pilots for warrants came in. His father was a doctor. And I told him the situation.
Wow.
Yeah, it's weird how the world works sometimes. He's like, yeah, it makes perfect sense for me to send you to medical school and not keep you as an Apache pilot. Like, why would we do that? So it's just
yes, that's exactly what you needed. Yes.
Right, so the common sense oriented. And I can't remember his name for the life of me. I hope he's doing well. He's probably long retired from the military, but it's all those small groups of people that you meet along the way that help you along your journey. And like, there's one point in time when I was an 18-year-old private Vanier that I haven't accomplished anything. And there's all these people that helped me achieve what I've done so far in my military career that I can't say thank you enough to them in terms of where I am. And to be honest, now I'm at that point in career where it's now my turn to mentor and help people kind of go through that same process. So
that's so beautiful. I love that. That's full circle. And then you've actually like you've made it. So is that what started you to want to start making like TikToks? Was to start speaking out, giving advice? How did you start that? Because I love that there's a doc on TikTok. I think that's like so great. It's like, yes.
I think there's like 2 or 3 other military doctors. I think there's the ED doctor running around. I don't know any of them personally, but originally I joined TikTok because I wanted to do like doctor stuff. I wanted to say like, oh, here's all this cool doctor stuff. But then I quite realized that, you know, the majority of my life has been in the military. Like, yeah, I am a doctor and that kind of stuff. I'm a military doctor, right? And I can have much greater impact on people's lives and like making people smile, and that via military humor, sarcasm versus the medical community. And I do have quite a few like medical people that follow me on TikTok and that, but the majority of them are military. And if you haven't noticed, I'm very, very sarcastic.
Yes, I like your sense of humor. It's almost like kind of like when I see your videos, I'm like, damn, an officer said that. That's so cool.
I am very much still like a warrant officer at heart. Very, very blunt sometimes. And I mean, more sarcastic in person. All my medics and people around me will tell you that. So I tone it down a little bit for TikTok, but I am not your typical officer. I am a little bit more open book. And I think that's something that we do need in the officer community a lot of times, is people who are more free thinkers in terms of opening, like voicing their opinions and why certain stuff, it shouldn't be the way it is. So, yeah.
That's really cool. Okay, so I have a question about your medics, because obviously I was a medic in the Air Force. Okay, so not as cool. I never got to do flight, but I loved working with the flight docs because they were so happy and they were so chill, and the patient care load was so nice. Like we would have like medics fighting over, because they're like, okay, we need 2 medics to go over because, you know, there's 2 medics that are, you know, on maternity leave, you know, who wants to fill in? And we'd all be like, oh my God, please. We want to like help. We want to like know what the go-go pills are and like all that, especially as like a baby medic. What is like have you had any experience with like the baby medics versus like the locked in medics, or like the kind of the green ones and stuff?
So in Korea, this is like I said, most of my career has been in combat arms. So very different population, very different mindset in that. And of course, my training background's in surgery. So I also bring like a different mindset than a lot of doctors in the medical community. My very first duty station was there in Korea. I was in a field surgery unit. It was called a MCAS. It's essentially a role 2 that's designed to support all the units at home of doctors. Because in the Army, the only units that get doctors are combat arms units. Combat arms is an old term we used to use. It has newer terms now, but essentially infantry, tanks, field artillery, aviation stuff, people or battalions that you expect to have casualties during wartime.
Yeah.
But if you're military intelligence, or if you're signal, or wherever the case is, a lot of times you're not going to get that stuff because you're not expected to have a lot of casualties. So that's what MCAS does. They kind of support those units. So we have a full company of medics, right? And most of the time, most people don't want to go to Korea, which I don't know why. Korea is awesome. It has such a cool vibe.
I mean, yeah, a lot of people want to go to Korea. They just know the whole stereotype of like, if you go to Korea enlisted, you'll come back a lower rank.
which is kind of true sometimes.
Yeah, because a lot of people like, not I wouldn't say get in trouble, but I don't know what the heck goes on in Korea. I'm not gonna lie.
There's a lot of crazy stuff that goes on in Korea.
Yeah.
But you look at the population, it might change now with these new rules in place for being a 2-year or a 2-year obligation going over all that. But you get essentially brand new people because not a lot of people want to go over to Korea for 1-year assignments when they have families, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So in that unit, I had mainly brand new medics, and we don't have
little baby.
Yeah, we had baby brand new green medics, fresh from San Antonio, coming to do their thing. But it's cool, right? Like this is their first impression in the military, and you get to be like one of the people that get to mentor them, right? And the coolest thing about being a doctor, you'll hear me on my videos or whatever the case is, or walking around. I don't call them by their military rank and last name. I call them by their first name, like all the way from my E4s, Frankie and Parker, to my NCOIC, who's a E6, Pierre. And the reason I do that, and the reason I call my patients by their first name that, is because it's not a typical relationship in the military, really.
No, it's not.
It's completely different, and I want them to view like that. That's one of the like downfalls of me promoting to major and becoming a field grade, is I don't want people in the military hyper focus on rank and not so much capabilities and like who they're talking to. My job as a doctor is to take care of patients. My job as a doctor is to mentor, and that I don't have to do the whole command thing by any means. Like that's not my role as a doctor, right? My role as a doctor is to take care of a mentor and all that stuff. So you'll hear me talk to them by their first names. And I think one of the most important things you do as a leader is understanding where your subordinates are coming from. So like I know exactly what their family's made of, what their goals are in life, right? What they want to do. And it's very easy as a leader to kind of sit there, especially in the Army, we're very like goal driven. So like in the medical field, I've been told, even as a doctor, professional in terms of what I do, I should go do an expert field medical badge because that's going to look better. I remember just thinking like, I have a doctorate in this. Like I have a doctorate in medicine. Like doing EF&B doesn't quite like make sense. But that's just a mentality we have in the Army. So I tell my young medics, I'm like, hey, you want to go do EF&B? And both of them were like, no. I was like, okay, cool.
Oh
like,
my God. I wish
adults.
we could have, I wish we could have done that for the Air Force. We don't really get to do anything, but our mission's different. But
very different.
Yeah, I remember a lot of us when we found out that the Army has that, we're like, oh my God, are you serious? Like, why don't we have anything like that? And we're like, dang, the Army is so cool when it comes to medical stuff.
The crazy thing is that EF&B and EIB, that came before Air Force separated from the Army. You guys stole all the cool stuff and then left some of it for us, I guess.
Dang it, Air Force, what? Come on.
Occasionally we'll have like Air Force people go through, but it's good training. But like, I don't force training on people. I don't force promotion. If you don't want to get promoted, I don't force it on you. I treat you like an adult, and I help you achieve your goals, just like so many people help me achieve mine. So those brand new medics, when I was a field surgeon, like the ability to mentor them and show them like, yeah, this is what your expectations in the military are like. It was such a cool opportunity, really, because I do love teaching. I suck at teaching, actually. Like I'm not the world's best teacher, comma.
No.
I'm very passionate about it, and I enjoy it. Where my medics now, they're a lot more experienced. My E6 actually has a doctorate. He has a doctorate in psychology, so he has a PhD. Yeah, so there's like a powerhouse team of us.
Wow.
And of course, one of my E4s came from here at Bragg in 82nd, so he's very experienced. The other E4 I have, he's been around the military for a while, very experienced. He wasn't even fully in process in the unit. We were already like having him teach stuff and that. So it's a very weird dynamic to go from brand new medics to like more seasoned medics and just like see how fast they grow. But you spend all this time teaching them, and like they're only there for a year, and then they go off to Bragg to go do cool stuff. So I do enjoy seeing pictures of my medics here at Bragg or wherever getting their EF&B or deploying or like promoting all that stuff. It's super cool.
That's really awesome. I have okay, so I get this question a lot, but I'm not Army, so I really don't know, and I can't give any advice on it. For Army medics that are getting out of San Antonio, going to their first taking their first like patient loads and stuff, what's the biggest, because I always get asked like what's like the thing to look out for, like what's something that's like difficult, or what can I expect it's like, because I just have the Air Force perspective, which for me is like the computer, learning the questions to ask, figuring out like how to like work with your doc too is like a really
Yeah.
big thing, because all docs are different, especially with documentation. What
Yeah.
advice do you have for Army medics that are out of San Antonio that are going to their first station, since you've had little green medics?
If you have a good work ethic, and you work hard on that, you will learn all this stuff about computers and what questions to ask, all that stuff, right? The biggest thing, the biggest downfall going to any military unit, no matter what you're doing, is the culture, understanding it, right? We have, especially in medicine, and we could talk about more like later on, we have this almost like perception that every patient you see in the military is almost like malingering. We have this
Yeah.
perception of like people shouldn't go to medical, and we are medical professionals. That's our job. But that
Mhm.
perception still runs rampant through there. And you see very early on young medics who are like bright eyed and bushy tailed. They want to go learn all this stuff, get demoralized very quickly, or like start feeding into that culture because they think that's what they should be doing. So
Yeah.
the biggest thing I can tell them is like to not have that mentality, even though you hear all the stuff that like providers will tell you like, oh, I think this patient's malingering.
Mhm.
To have that mindset that your job is to take care of patients. Like that's the most valuable thing that we can do, is
Mhm.
to make sure, and like all the other stuff will come into play eventually. It'll all come down, but the job of a medic isn't to determine malingering or that, is to take care of them.
Mhm.
So they lose very early on because of military culture. They lose that compassionate care a lot of times.
Yeah.
And there's a very fine line between you have to be tough with your patients and knowing when you have to be tough with them versus when you should be compassionate and like taking care of them. So I think it's the biggest piece of advice right there for me. Everything else will come. If you're a hard worker, everything else will come with experience.
Yeah. I think that's a
Yeah.
really interesting point, because it is true, and I've definitely seen it and I experienced it myself. I think one of the biggest things when I was getting out and I learned like all like this like field stuff. I learned all these things, and then you aren't like in a field setting, or you're not in any
Yeah.
setting where you're like using any of the super emergency life-saving stuff. And I got super demoralized, and so did a bunch of other
Yeah.
medics, especially in the Air Force. Being like, oh, this is what I have to do. Like this is kind of like
100%.
yeah, it's very different. So you have like all this life-saving knowledge that you don't really get to apply anymore, even though you had to study your butt off for it.
Yeah.
And we used to like kind of idolize the Army medics a little bit, because we would see them in like Fort Sam, or looking back, we would think, oh my God, I remember when they were out of their class, they would be, and I'm sure they like hated this because it was San Antonio and like 120-degree heat. Like, there's nothing
Yeah.
to idolize, Air Force, shut up. But they would like be out there and practicing and really getting hands on. And I know some medics ended up in places where they weren't even allowed to do IVs. They weren't even allowed to
Yeah.
practice IVs. And I think that was super demoralizing for a lot of people. And it's like, why can't we do a dang IV? That doesn't make any
Yeah.
sense at all.
Yeah, I think a huge part is something that I think we as military need to do better in terms of military medicine. Now, without a doubt, military medicine is this humongous, like, just organization, right? It's a very complex organization. It takes a lot of money to make military medicine work, all that. But I think a lot of times we forget what our primary mission is. Every job I've ever had in the military, there's always a mission. And when I was infantry, it was to close with and destroy the enemy, right? When I was Apache pilots, my job was to protect the infantry and the innocent civilians and that kind of stuff. That was my mission. As a doctor, my mission is to take care of patients, but more importantly, it is to be prepared to go to war and take care of our war fighters, make sure they return home to their families, right? I think overall, we sometimes we digress and forget what our mission is in the military. And we get into those situations that you just talk about where we put like my medics right now, like they're in a clinic. Frankie, who just is coming off of paternity leave, he asked me like 2 days ago, he's like, hey, sir, what am I going to be doing? I'm like, well, I have to send you back to a clinic so we can keep like seeing patients. And you could like the will to live exited his eyes, right? Like, I don't blame him one bit. Like nobody
it's
signs up.
true.
It is, right?
Oh.
And I go on my way to make sure that even though he's in a clinic and we have to do that part because of DHA mandates, all that other stuff, I take him up to my old unit that's up in Area 1 that I used to be a field surgeon for, that we were just talking about. I take them up there and I put them on a table and that so they can keep up their skills.
Oh, that's so
I,
nice.
I send them to joint the training that's for prolonged field care so that they keep refreshing. My NCOIC went to an instructor course so that he can like keep up and keep learning how to do like medic stuff and that. So,
Wow.
but I have to like go out my way to find these opportunities for them. Otherwise, the military is not going to help you with that. They're going to say, "Hey, do your table 8s every 2 years, and like you're good." That's just not how this works. And the same thing happens for us doctors too.
Yeah, you guys have it, especially with the DHA load. Just watching you guys take stuff home with you, like the documentation, and they're like, yeah, I was sitting, all of them are like, I was sitting at the table with my family at dinner, doing my documentation, and I was staying up with my husband or my wife until 1 a.m. in the morning doing my documentation.
It's crazy. We don't. DHA came about because the idea came. How do I say this? DHA came about because they wanted to. They wanted to streamline military medicine, right? Which is an awesome idea, right? They wanted to create this idea that military medicine was purple. It wasn't blue, it wasn't green, it wasn't anything like that. It was we all were the same fight, same team, which is awesome, right? Mm-hmm. And there was also this idea floated around that it didn't matter what branch you're in, you could just be plugged into units. So like me as a dumb Army guy could be put into like an Air Force slot and then deploy with them. That obviously that doesn't really work out in reality, right? The Army has different missions from the Air Force versus the Navy and that. And you have special training, like a flight surgeon in the Air Force has 6 months worth of flight surgeon course. We get 6 weeks because we just don't have the same kind of complexity in that.
What?
Yeah, it's 6 weeks and that. So you just kind of get thrown out there. Luckily, I have that pilot experience, so I kind of can mesh it. But I've had to go seek out other training, like the FAA, like aeromedical course, become an examiner for the FAA. So I learned a lot more in that. So, so DHA had this cool concept came along saying, you know, we're going to unify military healthcare. What DHA ended up being, though, was essentially TRICARE. It's an insurance agency. It's one of the world's biggest insurance agencies. It has like over 9 million people underneath it. Mm-hmm. And what you find out is each military service branch has their own requirements. They have their doctors. They need to use their doctors. DHA, who is in charge of all the clinics and that, they want those doctors that, again, finite resource. They want those doctors in the clinics, in the hospitals, taking care of patients. Mm-hmm. The problem is that mom and dad don't play well together at all. they suck at playing well together.
Oh my God.
So what you see is a lot of times is that it goes back to that mission I was talking about. Like my mission, the whole reason I am in the military is so we can be prepared to go to war. Well, most of my time is focused on the clinic doing medicine. What you see is DHA use all these metrics and they'll say, Alan, you're not meeting your metrics this month. And I'm like, well, that's cool. But like every one of my slots are filled and I have all these other stuff I have to do. I have to go do arms inspections. I have to go fly in the aircraft. I have to go teach classes for the aviators and that. Mm-hmm. DHA doesn't care about that stuff because their mission isn't that. Their mission is to take care of patients, which is great. But again, our mission overall is to take care of warfighters, make sure we're ready to go to war. So DHA and the military services don't always play well together. And what you see is the middleman is essentially the providers and the medics and medical personnel trying to balance that. And right now, I know a lot of my peers don't want to continue on because it wears you down a lot. Even though there's a lot of like pros and cons to each side, at the end of the day, we just don't have enough doctors in America, and we don't have enough doctors in the military. We don't have enough psychologists. So you see a lot of your bosses and that. Like I generally come in before anyone else shows up, and I'm generally there until 8 or 9 o'clock at night doing notes and doing my stuff. Because if you care about patients, that's what you have to do. If you don't care, then it's easy. You just kind of slap a 2-sentence note together and you're good to go. But if you actually care about your job, that's the price you end up having to pay. And a lot of people, we don't make nearly the same amount as your civilian counterparts. They don't want to keep doing that. So it is a struggle.
Yeah, it is. It really is. And it's really interesting you said that, like kind of like it takes away the providers like want to stay, because I worked in a place where we had 3 different clinics. We had the dependent clinic, the active duty clinic, the flight clinic. And there was a point where the dependent clinic had no providers, I'm not even kidding you. I'm not even kidding you. We had no more PAs. I think one might have been because of like maternity leave, but then they ended up getting out. One,
Okay.
they were a baby doc, and they were like, I can't do this anymore. I'm drowning. Another one was a former ER doc, and it was the same thing, like his will to like be involved anymore and was burning out was also there, and it just like
Yeah.
we ran out of doctors because of that, exactly like what you said is. And I didn't know too much. They didn't really tell the enlisted like everything about DHA and all that, but I definitely heard like, some like very aggressive talks about dang it DHA, gosh dang it, and like all this other stuff. So it is a very real thing. And from your perspective, you kind of see the importance of DHA. You have a pretty good opinion on both sides.
Yeah.
What do you think would be like a good mesh? Like if DHA were like, okay, we have to change this. This isn't working, but it is working. And the military's like, okay, same thing. What would be like a good, do you think, like hypothetical?
That's a very good question. It's something I've been trying to figure out myself for a long,
Really?
long time. Yeah, still have not come to a good idea how you mesh these because they have two such distinct goals associated with them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, you obviously, if you have doctors, you want to use them for patient care, and that.
Mm-hmm.
I think the biggest problem is like right now you don't really have somebody that's like oversees both of them necessarily, saying like this is the way it's going to be. You essentially have
Mm-hmm.
every duty station kind of making up their own formula how this works.
Mm-hmm.
So in Korea, we have a very unique situation where the doctors in the units are the ones that also man the hospitals. So if war would ever kick off, the hospital essentially dissolves. It goes into field units and all that stuff. Other places
What?
around, yeah,
What?
yeah.
Say,
So,
say that again. Wait,
so
so
yeah, so essentially the doctors that are in all these units. So for me, I'm in 3rd MI. The doctors in the field hospitals, all that, they're essentially borrowed from those units in the hospital, which is not unusual. But what is unusual for Korea is if war would ever break out, we would actually go back to our units and the hospital would have shut down because all the families would get evacuated out of Korea, which is very different from other MTFs in that, where you have generally a stable population assigned to that hospital. So no matter what happens, they always have people. And then you'll still have people from other units assigned to it to help out. But the hospital will always keep running no matter what. Korea is very different in that regard.
wow.
So trying to balance DHA priorities, which is, again, insurance-based primarily, where they're trying to take care of all these like families and all that stuff versus our real world mission of, potentially the Korean armistice, all that stuff, it's tricky. And I don't envy the 06s and 07s trying to figure out all the stuff. But like I said, a lot of times what happens is us, like lower people, we're the ones that end up getting the brunt of it. Because there's just not enough doctors, there's not enough psychologists, not enough medics anywhere in the military, nowhere in America either. So I've tried figuring out like what would be a good way. I don't know if the best way is to literally go back to the way we had it before, but then we also had problems with standards of care at that point in time. So
Yes.
the DHA came along and it's provided us more with that standardized, like this is what good quality medicine looks like.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it's also caused a lot of issues. And I think that those issues are causing a lot of people to leave the military because of that.
Interesting. And you mentioned psychologists a couple times now.
Yeah.
What? Because I've seen psychologists get burnt out. We have a very huge problem, at least where I was at. I know every base branch is different. Are you experiencing and seeing the same thing with psychologists in the Army?
Across the board, if you're lucky to meet a psychologist or a psychiatrist, psychologists, I think there's like a misnomer when it comes to like understanding where psychologists come from. They have extremely long trainings also, because they go through their PhD program and then they also have to do internships, all that stuff. Social workers don't have the same kind of like length of training that goes along with them. A little bit easier to procure, but at the end of the day, across America, we'll see across the world, we have a higher demand for BH because people are becoming more susceptible of BH and mental health issues and all that, which is good. We just haven't caught up. Our society hasn't caught up with the demand of it. So what you see is the psychologists are also getting burnt out because they are seeing patients like nonstop over and over again, to the point where like we see so many patients in the military healthcare system, psychologists are, that they can only see them for a couple of times before they either have to move them to a civilian provider or they have to say, you know what, like we can't see each other every week like we should be seeing, like we just don't have enough time. You have to see me every month, or whatever the case is.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the military has been trying to get to the point where you can do like online psychology and all this other stuff to supplement.
Mm-hmm.
But it's hard and it's expensive. Like I said, military medicine is extremely expensive if you want to do it right.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to want to do it right, because it's one of those huge perks that we have in the military. So yeah, all my friends who are like psychologists, they're all like pretty well burnt out. And these are some of the kindest, nicest people you'll meet. And they're
Yeah.
kind of, they're over it also in many ways. So healthcare in general is a rough field to be in right now.
Mm-hmm.
And then right now, there's just no good solution in the far term, because it takes so long to train people.
You are currently in the process of you're in a hotel room and you have a skeleton in the chair. So I can only assume you went through airport security with a skeleton in the chair. Before we get back to the psychology, what the heck's going on with that, Doc? What are you doing?
Halloween. Who did ortho?
Oh,
You see skeletons. I don't know. I saw some actual Christmas stuff today in Fayetteville when I was wandering through one of the malls. There was like a bunch of Christmas stuff set up too.
let's go.
I mean, I'm Halloween's never been like a cool thing for me. Like I was like, oh, Halloween, Christmas is awesome. I love Christmas.
Yeah, Christmas is great. I saw I don't know if you know who he is, but Brad Halling, he was in you do?
Yeah.
Yeah, he has a dispenser, or he has a place in not Fayetteville, but like North Carolina, like probably, yeah, he has a bar, and straight up look up like Brad Halling. I can send you afterwards like his Instagram, but he has like a brewery, I think it's called. And he posted, just to say your Christmas thing, he posted like a Christmas special whiskey that's gonna be like limited edition. And I was like, I did one of the like the emote, like the gifts where it's like, take my money. And it had Christmas music, and I was so excited. I was like, yay, Christmas is like the best time of the year. It's always so happy and jolly.
We're almost there.
Yeah, but he has a place probably not far. Obviously, I'm not going to say where you're at, but like probably not far from you, because it's not necessarily the furthest either from me.
Katie.
Yeah. So yeah, he has a thing. And for anybody that doesn't know, Brad Halling was he was a part of Black Hawk Down. He was a part of that whole thing. He became as funny as it sounds, a vetrepreneur. I love that word. I don't think it's lame at all. And he has his own brewery. So if you want to support Brad Halling, free plug there. Yeah,
it's so cool watching like people grow as they kind of go along throughout their careers and after the military and all that. Like you, right? Like you had the military, and then like now you're doing other cool stuff with your life.
Yeah,
believe it or not, people, there's more to life than just military.
I know, and it's such a crazy thing, because I'm like, for transitioning, there was definitely, I'm glad I got out when I did, because I don't think I would have. I had a hard time transitioning even at just 4 years in, and so I can't imagine what it's going to be like for people that have spent more time in. But I was talking to like Rudy, and he made this quote, and I'll never forget it. But he was like, "Yeah, once you work for Uncle Sam, it's really hard to work for anybody else. So you'll see a lot of veterans making their own things, like Brad Halling made his brewery, or people make their own. Like I see docs make their own like practices, or things like that. And it's really good to see, because you hear so much about veterans that don't necessarily we all know that some veterans can end up homeless or taking their own lives, but then you see with social media that they're kind of diving into this different thing and kind of creating their own community, so they don't really lose that like camaraderie, is what I'm saying. And it's really cool.
It is. And I think that's anybody who's a little bit nervous getting out, they should use that as an example of what they can do in terms of that. And the military community never really leaves you. Like, we're still all here. My good friends from residency and throughout my career, like I still talk to a lot of them when I have questions. Actually, one of the guys that I've just said the unit that left, he's one of the pilots in the Golden Knights now. And I was like, hey, man,
no way.
Yeah, it's super cool, right? And I was like, hey, I saw them taking off, because where I'm doing my training right now, they use that as their airport. I was like, hey, man, like, are you around? Like, it'd be cool to see the airplanes, like, go for a ride. Like, he hasn't responded yet, though. I think I think I've been denied.
Oh my God. Wait, okay, I have to ask you something. Okay, so it's not really asking, but it's like I need to know if this is true for you too. But I was at a baby shower for a friend, and her dad was an army pilot or an army, I think it was army, he was an Apache pilot, so it's army.
The coolest ones, yeah,
Yeah, the coolest ones. And
naturally.
he's like 50, 60. Like he's got his tropical button down shirt. Like he's living the life. And I was like, "Hey, I heard like this joke before. Is it true?" Where it's like, in really nice locations, you'll have like, helicopter problems. And then he's like, "Oh yeah," he's like, like any tropical place, always problems, always take
Yep,
several days to fix. He's
100%.
like, "But in New Mexico, Arizona, no problems ever. We were always like, our helicopters were always great there." And I was like, "Oh my God, you punks. That's so cool."
We being in aviation is one of the coolest experiences you can have, because it is like, it's military, but it's not the military by any means. We used to, like, obviously helicopters don't fly super far, which that's what I'm always jealous by the Air Force pilots, because they fly halfway around the world and have problems.
Oh,
Um,
stop
I,
it.
I was
Stop it.
stationed at Fort Hood, Texas. Like, my problems
Oh.
ended up like, it was like Houston. I was like, okay, well, I guess this is what I get. But we would go around, and we would go like on beer runs, essentially, like with growlers. So we load the back of the Apache up with growlers. So if you're a civilian, you watch us land, you're like, man, that's so cool. And then you watch us get out, and you're just unloaded the growlers into this like gator to go get them filled up. You don't see that in other units. Like, just the mentality, like the unit I'm in right now, we wear like the old school A2 like bomber jackets, and like a lot
Oh,
of
that's
aviation
so
history.
cool.
Yeah, it's so cool. And of course, the mentality, the warrant officers are famous for their mentality in aviation, in terms of like their hair is generally a little bit out of rags, and they have these out of rag mustaches, and
Mhm.
they're generally like very focused on the mission. That's my personality in a nutshell. We all have our mission, we have our job, and a lot of times we get distracted by a lot of this stuff that doesn't really matter in the big picture on that. So aviation, I think the flight community and the Navy and Air Force have even better in terms of your guys' cool aircraft that you get to fly around the world. But yeah, no, it's you do training that theoretically helps you achieve some other stuff, like a
Mm.
good supper or something like that. So
Mhm. I do remember when I went to my first air show in the military, somebody like came in on like a helicopter, and they like we had to like clear like make a little area, little baby
yeah,
medics. They're like, "All right, little medics, go out there and like clear the area." And we're like, "Okay, cool." So we went out. They landed the helicopter, and I'll never forget, the pilot pulls out a book. And then they pull out a book, and I think it was for like a medevac maybe.
okay,
And then they start like going through the book, and then they like press a button, and then they go through the book again, and then they
yeah.
press a button. And then I'm like, I can freaking do that. I was like, you have a book to learn how to fly? I'm like, freaking give me my pilot's license. I can read a book and press buttons. And then like a salty old army medic was like, you dunce. They have to do that. That is like per requirement. They have that memorized, but they have to do that. And I was like, oh, sorry.
In the army, we can't even read. We just pull it out to make us look good. Yeah,
Yeah,
but
you
by
just like,
regulation, we have to pull it out and use it. But so much goes into like being a good pilot and all that stuff that if you're really good at what you do make it look easy. I have to take that back. The coolest pilots aren't Apache pilots; they have to be medevac pilots.
hey,
I
let's
give them shout out.
go.
They, of all the stuff we did in Afghanistan, they are by far some of the bravest, coolest pilots you'll meet. They understood what it meant to have a mission and do that mission. So, yeah, being a pilot is awesome. Being a crew member is awesome. So if you're in the military still, go to a aviation unit. It's such a cool experience.
That's really cool. Do helicopters? Because I know, because I worked at a place that had a lot of F-16s, and they had like, I think, beef. I don't know if it was like beef, but it was like fake. It was like fake frat boy beef with like, I think it was
Yeah,
the A-10s or something. I don't remember
probably.
like whose is like better. Did the Apache pilots have like that fake like thing with any
Ugh.
other helicopter?
We do. There's all stereotypes. Like the Salt guys,
Yeah.
the Black Hawk pilots, are always like a little stuck up. The Apache pilots are always like, they're like the jocks of the community. They're always like headstrong. The Chinook guys are always known as being like super laid back. The reality was that we're all kind of about the same in the reality of the whole big picture. But we do sometimes like fit into the stereotypes, and you can imagine, like, as an attack pilot, you are a lot more little bit forceful with some of your opinions and that than probably a Chinook guy who has a little bit more laid back personality because of what their missions are. So they all have an important role to play in terms of combat aviation. And I respect all of them for doing that. I wouldn't want to be a Black Hawk pilot or Chinook. I was meant to be an Apache pilot, that's for sure. Back then, we also had Kiowas back then too.
You had what?
We had Kiowas. They were like these small little aircraft. It's actually the aircraft we used to learn how to fly in flight school for the Army. And don't tell any of my peers this, but I think the funnest I've ever flew or I had in the military as just flying around were with Kiowas, doors off, low altitudes. Like, that's in flight school. You do that for about, I think it's a month, 6 weeks. I can't remember. You call it the basic warfighter skill phase, whatever. But you literally fly doors off. You're flying low level. You're like operating with a map, like doing Army stuff, like pop you up behind trees. And it's the first time in your career that you're like, man, I'm like a cool pilot now, right? You can hover, you can land, like you're not completely handicapped because you're brand new. So by far, probably one of the coolest flights experiences I had in the military was Kiowas. Apache's great. It does an awesome job at what it does. But yeah, Kiowas. Pretty cool. We don't have them anymore though.
No, we have to use them for training or something, or do we just they gotta be sitting around somewhere?
We got rid of all of them. We used to use them for training. We went to Lakota, which is bigger, and now we've also kind of realized that was a mistake. So now we're looking for a new aircraft to replace them. Yeah, that was an expensive mistake by the Army training center. So yeah.
Oh my God.
So okay. Not my money.
No, absolutely not. God, that's so good. So what is it like when you get patients that, see you as a doc, but then figure out that you were also previously like a pilot? Does it kind of get you like a,
like, there's that saying that, how's the saying go? Like, you never have to worry about knowing who the pilots are because they'll tell you. All the time. Right. It's like, I used to be cool, right? Like before I did all the sick call stuff. Yeah. A lot of them actually word spreads because you started making TikToks when you were in the military, right?
Yes, I did. Yeah. I did.
Word spreads quickly among people. So like when I did this, Sergeant Major Spencer, she does that coin. She hides those coins and that. Super cool. She sent me a coin. I hit it. I was bumping into people like in my unit, all over the place. They're like, hey, like I saw your TikTok. Like you didn't hook me up. I was like, oh, well, you're here for blood in your diarrhea, like that kind of stuff. Like, so it's a lot of them already kind of wear my backstory and word spreads really quickly. Cool. Like, but I use that to my advantage. Like in all seriousness, I use that to my advantage for the pilots. And I do that by saying, you know what, I used to be a pilot. I understand what it means to not want to go to the doctor because you don't want to be grounded. Yeah. And I phrase it in a way that they understand. And I'm open to all of them. So my entire battalion, doesn't matter if you're a pilot or you're a fueler or you're an admin, whatever the case is, you have my personal cell phone number, you have my email. And probably like 5-10 times a day, I get random texts from people throughout the unit saying, hey, I'm sick, what should I do? And that's one way I kind of get around this like ambiguity. Again, like I'm not a typical like officer, like I am a doctor. My job is to take care of the unit. So that's the way I kind of get around this like stereotype of like, hey, the doctor is always going to ground you and they don't want you to fly and all that stuff. So they all know that I'm a former Apache pilot. Our chief pilot used to be an Apache pilot. So like, this is cool, like blends, all that. Like he started flying the year I was born. That's how old he is. He's still healthy as an ox. So I use that to my advantage a lot of times when I'm talking to all these pilots, like, hey, you have something major going on. I used to be a pilot. It's like, here's how we diagnose, how we treat you. Here's the times I'm going to have to down you for a little bit. But don't worry, like I am going to do everything I possibly can to make sure you can fly when you can fly safely in that. So, so a lot of people in my unit know my backstory and that. So
that's really cool. And can you explain to the people just who don't understand, like, because they might be wondering, like, why don't pilots want to get grounded? Or like, what does that mean to be like deniffed? Can you just kind of explain like why, in the culture of the military for pilots, like why that isn't like a great thing?
Yeah. So when you become a pilot, regardless of what branch of service you're in, you become a pilot and you're trained with the intent that you're healthy and you're going to have a 10-year career. For all services is 10-year commitment, right? So when we select people, when I have a brand new person who wants to go be a pilot, or like Fort Rucker or Pensacola or whoever looks at your packet, they select you. What they're saying is like, hey, you medically, we don't see anything wrong that's going to take you out of the fight in the next 10 years. Like you're going to have a 10-year long career in the military. Now, when you go through that whole process of 1 to 2 years of flight school, that's a huge amount of time you're investing into becoming a pilot. And when you get to your unit, it doesn't stop. Like as an Apache pilot, it's like I became an Apache pilot, got my wings, and then like I still wasn't qualified to go to war. I had to readiness progress and that. So I had to go shoot my gunnery tables and like learn how to do recon and all this other stuff, right? It's a constant grind. So by the time you get done with all that stuff and all these years of training, and you get there, like the last thing you want is some nerdy doctor like me coming along and be like, hey, like you have a herniated disc, you can't fly anymore, right? Like, and you hear all these like crazy stories about like people getting like deniffed and like they never get fly again, all that. The reality is like most people, they might get grounded for a little bit, but they get put right back to flying. And I always tell my aviators a story. Like when I flew, I had a herniated disc from when I was an infantry officer. It happened like literally like weeks before I went to flight school. So I didn't say anything. I was like, you know what? If I say something, they're not going to let me fly anymore. I had the same stigma. And I flew and it got so bad that I had my pain down my left leg and it was like starting to go numb in that. So by the time I got into medical school, one of my mentors who in ortho, he's the one that did my surgery. Like I just lived with this whole time. And my mentor asked me, he's like, why the heck did you let this go on so long? I was like, well, I was afraid like I couldn't fly anymore. And he's like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard, Alan. Like, why the heck would you do that? Like so one of the things I do every month, I do academics with all the aviators and I pick a problem. So 1 month I did lower back pain. 1 month I did, or actually I haven't taught it yet, low testosterone, that kind of stuff. I'm like, hey, when I do this workup, this is what you can expect. Like we're going to do these tests and then I'm going to ground you for 3 weeks while we do this, like the new medication. And then we're going to put you back up. That way they can know the most common problems. They're like, oh yeah, doc already told me about this stuff. Like I go get it fixed and all that. And it's not a big deal by any means. But the biggest thing I can tell people, because it's just not aviation, military intelligence personnel with their top secret clearances or top secret clearances in general, right? There's a stigma that if you go CPA or health or see a doctor, you might have that security clearance taken away or where. I tell people that no matter where you are in your career, like it's not going to get easier. Like right now, you think you're busy, well, you're going to become even busier when you're a battalion standardization pilot or a brigade standard. Like it just never gets easier. And at the end of the day, the military is only there for so long. You will eventually have to go play with your kids and play with your grandkids and go do the stuff you want. And it'd be really sucky if we could have treated something pretty easily early on and you just lived with it for 20 years. And then it grew up into this big deal where now you can't walk right or you're in chronic pain in that. So it really, it takes a lot of coaching in that. So big story short, like I tell a lot of people I'm a pilot, not so much to brag, kind of brag.
It's okay. I would too. If I was like, I was an Apache pilot. I don't know. I'd have a freaking shirt and I'd wear it all the time. I'd be like Apache pilot, no big deal.
This guy.
Yeah, it's fun. Yeah, I'll sign whatever. Yeah, no worries. You want my patch? You want my patch? You want my patch?
It really comes, it's kind of like me telling my story about all the stuff I've done. It's not so much to like brag and tell, it's to show people that you can go do the stuff too, right? And it's for me as a pilot, as a doctor, to be like, hey, you know what? Like I'm a doctor, like I'm telling you my mistakes that I made and how I'm going to make sure you don't have to go through the same thing so you can take care of yourself and you can achieve the mission that you've always wanted to do your entire life, but we can make sure you're taken care of. So it's just kind of this common sense oriented like process that we do, or at least I try to do to make sure that they're taken care of. We can do the mission, all that.
That's really cool. That's really cool. Do you see at all, what do you think is harder for the flyers? Do you think it's physical stuff or do you think it's behavioral mental health stuff which one do you think they're less likely? Because I know people with TS are less likely to seek out any help for psychological because they're like, I will not lose my TS.
Yeah.
There's no way. I feel like, is it the mental health? Is that the biggest hurdle?
I think, so for a lot of pilots, how do I explain this? Probably equally, in all honesty.
Really?
The ones that I can tell. Korea is a very unique place. It does put a lot of strain on relationships, on just like your career path. Behavioral health stuff ranges from pilots from like this feeling of being trapped because it's a 10-year commitment to relationship problems. Like if you come over here for only 2 or 3 years on like a bachelor, essentially PCS and you leave your family behind, well, that's not exactly easy on your family in that. So it kind of ranges, it's a broad spectrum. And then on top of that, though we do see like lower rates of behavioral health issues in like aviators and officers and senior NCOs and that, like it still happens. You still get pilots and people just by the nature of being human that have depression, anxiety, all that stuff. So much so I had to like, there's been pilots that requested not to fly anymore. They said, I'd rather not get any flight pay and just get rebranched or kicked out of the military because I have so much anxiety when I fly for whatever reason, right?
Wow.
And then, of course, have the typical stuff that happens when you get older, like your back starts hurting, like you have knee problems, you have low testosterone, that kind of stuff. So I've tried to say it's like equal. But that's one of the biggest things when we talk about DHA versus military mission. If I'm always in the hospital seeing patients and what that means is I'm not in the hangar with the pilots. I'm not able to see those changes in them being like, hey, like Brad today just doesn't seem right. He hasn't seemed right for the last like 2 weeks. Like there might be something going on. And that's the intent of military branches. That's what they want flight surgeons and field surgeons to be doing along with medics, is to be around people in their unit enough where they can say like, he's not feeling right. Like there's something going on here. And with the DHA, the way it is, I spend so much time in clinic, I'm not able to do that as much. So again, it's like this balance, this constant balance we're trying to achieve.
Yeah. That's really difficult trying to balance all of that, but also there is that blockage of, having someone in front of you for an appointment or even through a text versus like, what their battle buddies are seeing like on the day-to-day for those changes.
Yeah.
For the month of September, behavioral health, I know at your base, you guys recently had 2 soldiers take their own lives. I've experienced that. I think most people in the military have experienced that. And it's something that's running rampant, but we did initially meet. I messaged you because I was thinking of kind of, how can we prevent this? And one of my thoughts was, thank you for responding, by the way. Thank you for responding to my message. What if like docs had their own like, and I hate, you can't say that word, like unaliving clinic or unaliving, they had like a room and maybe like an office, or they had some sort of, there's usually a room somewhere that a doc can get occupied. And for 1 week, you have a doc that just takes those hot walk-in red flags, sees them. They can get called, they can get hit up. It gives them a week to do their paperwork, maybe get a break from patient load, build up a little bit of their, morale and stuff. But there's a lot of problems with that in general. And there's a lot of, I don't know, it's so rampant and we all know about it. And it's hard. Like, what do we do?
So I think the numbers, I have to look at all the numbers again. The latest data that we have in the military, and I'll talk a little bit about the veteran side as well as the active duty side. I think last year, the latest numbers we had about 550, 530 suicides, events in the military, right? And a good portion of them are generally, when you look at the demographics, they're generally like younger males, violent means, right? And that's what you generally get taught in these classes. You get all that. A little bit less the female active duty population, and that's a little bit less. But that's a lot of people every year in the military. And you look at the rates of it, the military suicide rate compared to the civilians, they're about the same. And I think that in the email I sent you, one of the things I commented on was this idea that if our goal is to meet, because you're never truly going to get rid of all of it, sadly.
Yeah.
But if our goal is like, hey, if the civilian side is this percentage, the military side should also be that percentage, I think we're losing the whole idea of what it means being military. Because every single day when you go to a military unit, you talk about the military and that, they're saying like, we are this big family, we're a small unit, we're constantly like interacting with each other. So the idea that our suicide rate should be the same as the civilian sector, I think is BS, in all honesty. It should be lower. We should have enough stuff in place because we see so much in the military of each other to pick up on that stuff. And we have made progress in terms of stigma. When I first came in as a young enlisted infantry, like you don't talk about that stuff. That the stigma was so high in infantry back in like 2005 and that. And we have gotten better, but the stigma's still there. I've heard it plenty even now in last year from people who like they just don't believe in seeking mental health, and a lot of people pay
Mm-hmm.
the price for it. And the reasons behind that can range anywhere from what I think a lot of us assume the reasons are, like depression, that kind of stuff,
Mm-hmm.
relationship problems. But when you look at the statistics for military, like 20 to 25% of those events, when they happen, they're people that are getting like Article 15s that just, they don't have supports. So
Really?
a huge portion of the population in that demographic is, they're just going through a tough time, whatever the reason is, right?
Yeah.
So I had a sergeant major reach out to me like 2 weeks ago, and he's like, hey, like they have a profile for like back stuff, all that. Like, what am I supposed to do with a soldier? And I talked to him about the back stuff and like extra duty. But one of the things I always make a point of when I talk to them now is talk to them, like let them know that this is okay. You can get Article 15, like you can do stuff that doesn't define
Mm-hmm.
you as a person. Like, you're not a bad person. Because a
Mm-hmm.
lot of times, a lot of these soldiers, they're away from their families. They don't have support networks. They may not fit in. We all know those people in the unit that don't fit in. And
Yeah.
all it takes is that one person saying, hey, how you doing today? Or saying like, you don't seem like yourself. Like, you want to go talk about it? I
Yeah.
work with this awesome psychologist, and it kind of goes into what you were talking about, like, hey, doctors or PAs having some time on side. It takes a lot of very specialized training to do therapy.
Mm-hmm.
I considered myself somewhat smart. I went to public school. In saying that, like, I don't have the skill sets necessarily or the training to go and sit down for an hour and talk to them about teaching them how to do all these like therapy
Yeah.
techniques and how to think about, right? And that's where psychologists and social workers come into play.
Mm-hmm.
And I work with this just awesome psychologist. Like, he's about 10 years older than me. He's in the Army Reserves. That's how he ended up in Korea as a rotational COSI team. But
Mm-hmm.
his main job is in the Air Force in England. So he works with aviators for your health stuff and top secret clearances, all that stuff. And watching him work, it's been eye-opening for me, because a lot of stuff that he does is stuff that I probably plan on incorporating more into what I do. Because what he'll do is he'll do coffee chats with people. He's like, hey, as I meet people, I'll refer them to him, or as he meets people around the unit.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, you know what? I don't think this is something that we need to necessarily go talk about formally and put in Genesis. Like, let's just go get a cup of coffee and talk about this. So
Interesting.
it really is. It humanizes the idea that behavioral health is okay to have a cup of coffee over, right? Like, it's not a
Yeah.
big deal in the sense that house has to be formal in that.
Yeah.
But it really comes down to, in the military, especially in the units that are designed to be based on teams and like these mini families that are created.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it really comes down to us like watching each other very closely and being brave enough to ask people like, hey, are you doing okay? And
Mm-hmm.
vice versa is true. Also creating an environment where those people feel comfortable saying, yeah, I'm not doing well right now.
Mm-hmm.
Because statistically speaking, everyone will have at least 1 to 2 major depressive episodes in their life for whatever reason. It could be financial
Really?
reasons. It could be relationship issues, whatever the case is. So it's actually very common, except we just have a society, especially in America and especially in the military,
Mm-hmm.
where we kind of like push it to the side. And we're getting better about that. But nevertheless, like, our suicide rates, just like our sexual assault rates and all that stuff, like, we could do a lot to get those down.
Mm-hmm.
But it takes a lot of education. It takes a lot of effort from each unit. It takes a lot of like presence from leadership saying like, this is what's normal. One of the cool things when I was looking up all this stuff for you, I remember an article I read where like this Marine actually ended up getting an award for coming forward and saying like, I'm depressed, I need help. Because their command wanted to make it so well known. They're like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, like, this is what we expect. Like, you guys seek out.
Yeah.
So I think we are making progress. It's this constant battle of like us being warriors and that kind of stuff, and then balancing the realities of life, which
Mm-hmm.
includes behavioral health. So
Yeah, I think you really kind of hit it on the nose, and we do have like better education. It is definitely something that I find it so interesting that it was the same as the civilian side when you said
yeah,
that. I think that's really interesting because let's just say it's what, 10%, 5%, let's just say it's some sort of percent. Even if you put that down, is that because 1% of the US population serves, is that like per
yeah,
person? Like, is it like,
yeah.
how do I say that? Whatever.
That'd be about active duty. So I think what they're doing is they're comparing active duty, the total active duty population, with the
Mm-hmm.
percentage of individuals that suicide. Because the Veteran Administration has a whole separate kind of numbers that they track, right? So I think last year or 2022, 2023, the veteran suicide rate was about, I think 6,500, 6,400, somewhere in there. The
Jesus.
US, the non-veteran suicide rate was 41,500.
Mhm.
I went to public school again, 41,500. Don't judge me. I went to Wisconsin, okay? We're
Wisconsin's
struggling.
great. You guys got the cheese, right? You guys,
We do have the cheese and
yeah,
cows.
yeah. You guys have
All about
cheese
the
and cheese
cows.
curds. That's like a thing there.
It's huge. I found a Culver's down here at Fort Bragg, which if you're from the Wisconsin area, that's a huge like restaurant up there. There's one down here at Fort Bragg.
Did you go there?
I 100% did.
Oh
But
my God.
you think I'm crazy? Of course I am. They're famous for custard and butter burgers. Like you can taste the butter on the burgers. Like it ends your life sooner, but it's worth it.
Oh,
Yeah.
great. Yeah, give me that atherosclerosis real quick. Just like let me get that in my veins real fast. Let me get that in there. It's
But when you,
go ahead.
yeah, so when you look at the veteran rate, like it's a huge proportion of the veteran or the total suicides in America. A huge proportion of those are veterans. And going back to the active duty rates, when you look at family members for active duty personnel that commit suicide, about 57% of those service or family members that commit suicide, they're prior military themselves, right? So there's definitely a huge proponent in terms of what we do in the military that predisposes you to these issues. And when you break it down for the veteran population, I think 40% of them are seeking VA care, and the other 60% are not seeking VA care. So
yeah,
there's a lot of areas that you can hear me speak. There's a lot of areas that we can target. But again, when you talk about this stuff, there's only so much time in a day you have. There's only so much money in that. So you have to have a very concerted effort to target those populations to help them in that. So.
yeah, I think there's definitely a gap there. I would definitely like agree with you, especially with not that many people seeking out VA themselves. And it was worded to me one time, and this kind of stuck with me, where it's like a lot of, some people join the military because they want to. And then there are some people where it's like you have to realize, even for the people that don't fit in the military, for some of them, that your soul is like, and your freedom is the last thing as a person that you can give away. Like you can give your time in a job. If you can't like have a job, or you're young, and you maybe didn't have like the best upbringing, you can join the military. Or people can, they can sell themselves, and then if that doesn't like support you, you can also, like, the last thing you have is like your freedom to sell, going, okay, it is like the very last thing as a human that you can give away, and the government's going, this is worth something to me. I will take you. And it's really hard, because I think, and it's so easy to get like your own personal opinions about people. It's so easy for us to look at the people that don't quite fit in, or like don't really do their job, or don't necessarily like have the best military work ethic. We see them and they know who they are because they can feel it. They're like angry all the time, or they're upset all the time. And it's like that. It's just such an interesting place, because some people, like, I know foster kids that join, and I know, like, they were telling me, like, one of the things I hate the most is when someone says, like, what are your plans for the holidays? Because they're like, I never have plans. They're like, I hate lying and saying, oh, I have something planned, when really they're just going to be like at home. They're like, I wish someone would say, hey, if you don't have anything going on, you can come here. Or, hey, if you don't have anything going on, so-and-so is hosting something. And it's kind of like that disconnect, because there are people that are happy and love the military and joined. And then there's other people that are like selling their freedom, or like signing it away was the last thing they could do to better themselves. And it's just such a freaking, like, it's so polar,
It is.
It's so different. And I think there's just such room for people to fall in between. We can't catch them all, but we want to. But it's like, how do you reach those people,
I think it really comes down to, as a leader, having compassion, understanding your role as a leader.
Yeah.
And it sounds crazy in like the medical world. It's something that we struggle with in the military medical community as well. One of the biggest things that I do is both the same time one of the biggest disappointments I have in the military medical system, but it's also one of the biggest things I do within the military medical system, is this idea that as doctors, as PAs, and that our job is to provide compassionate care to patients. And what you see, and what I realize over time, is a lot of people, even as providers come in, we kind of talked about before, they assume that everyone's a malingerer, that they shouldn't be there, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So one of the biggest things I do is for my PAs, my young doctors, that when I'm training them, is to teach them the stuff like malingering is a diagnosis of exclusion. It's just like depression. It's the last thing you come to. Like, you have to rule out everything else.
Yeah.
Is to treat each patient, like, even if you're tired and worn out, that each patient is an individual person. And even if you've seen them 10 times that week and you know they're using the system, your job still provides compassionate care in that for them. So the same thing goes with just leadership in general. Being able to, you can be an infantry officer, you can be special forces, you can do like all these like type A mentality kind of things and be compassionate and like understand where your soldiers are. That's why when I talk about leadership, there's stuff that you should do that's common sense oriented, like letting your people go home early when they're done. Like, to me, that's common sense. That's good leadership. But that's not like, no, that's good leadership to me is you asking
please let
them,
us help. Please, Sarn. Please, Sarn.
you shall suffer with me. We talk about good leadership. What it really is like you talking to them, be like, hey, what's your family life like? What are your goals in life like? How can I help as a leader to get you there? That is how you make an impact. Like writing NCORs, or if you want them to write them for you, like you taking the time and taking it to all these people and be like, hey, they're a good soldier, they deserve to be promoted. Like, let's make sure they have a stellar NCOR, and you just don't write it home for these. Like, that's how you take care of people. And same thing as in medical community is something that we need to do better with, in all honesty, is this idea that every patient's unique. They have their own set of problems. And I get, like, I've been frustrated with patients too. But it's probably one of the biggest disappointments for the military medical system I've noticed since joining, is this idea that a lot of providers don't give that compassionate care that they should. But it's also the biggest opportunity for me is to teach young doctors and medics and PAs and that, like, this is our job. Like, we can make such a huge impact on soldiers' life. And sometimes all it takes is that one person saying, you know what, like, I understand you're having a tough time right now, but like, you have hope. You can do this stuff. Like, we're all in those places. It takes a team to kind of make a good person and come out of this experience. So, it's hard. Leadership's hard. The military's hard. We shouldn't make it harder on ourselves.
Right. I definitely agree. And I don't think anybody, I think really when you get into those positions, I think especially as a doctor, I could only assume it's just there's so much more. Do you think that like not lack, but like that dissolvement of compassion, do you think that comes from the burnout? Do you think that if they weren't so burned out, they would be so much less like inclined to?
Yeah. 100%. I remember this, you know me for a little bit now. I think most people see my videos. I am very similar to my videos that, like, I am very easygoing. I'm sarcastic. I like making people laugh and that. I remember there was this time at Walter Reed. It was like in March timeframe. Like, I was on call shift as an orthopedic surgery resident, and this guy came in at 2:00 in the morning, and I was so burnt out. I remember specifically thinking, I'm like, what the hell is this guy doing ruining my like day? Because I hadn't slept yet, right? It's like a lot of times. So I'm like, I'm already mad. And this whole time, I'm like, I go to him. He has like a fracture dislocation. His ankle's pointing in the wrong direction. So like, my job is to put it in the right direction, right? It's not his fault, right? People, this happens to people, right? And it's my job to provide compassionate care. And at that time, I was not providing compassionate care. I remember having that like aha moment, like, what are you doing, Alan? Like, you're letting the system win over you. Like, this is not who you are as a doctor, as a person, and that kind of thing. And I think a lot of our providers are prior service. And the benefit of having prior service is you understand where those people are coming from. You've been infantry, you've been field artillery, signal, wherever the case you were, you understand the military. That should be a good thing. What you see a lot of times is those providers bring all those stigmas from being NCOs with them, being like, oh, every patient that comes in at sick hall is a malingerer. Like, I never went to sick hall. Why are they coming to sick hall? So again, like, one of the biggest things I do is, like, when I hear that, make it very clear that that's not our job. Like, our job, if it gets to that eventually, like, we'll deal with it. But our job is to take them for their word and treat them and do the proper workup that they should have. So, and same thing as a leader, that's what you also have to do. Like, again, all it takes sometimes is that gentle mentorship over a couple of months to kind of form them into, that ideal person that they can be. But if you push them off because they're that weird kid, or like they don't fit in, or whatever the case is, well, yeah, they're going to continue being that weird kid that doesn't fit in. Like they don't have the skills yet. It's like,
Yeah,
help them
they'll
out.
meet they'll meet the expectation that you've already set for them,
Yeah,
which is a very true thing, unfortunately, especially when
right.
you're like you're a little young thing,
Exactly.
you're a little young thing. You're gonna, oh, the world expects me to be like this. I'm already getting treated like this. I'm just gonna fall into whatever it is, and subconsciously or consciously, and then you're not, creating that blossoming, I don't know, whenever, get out of that, rub
Yeah.
your little spiky rock, just like take some sandpaper and just, like round out those edges. Come on.
It's such, we lose opportunity on so many people, or we give up on them when they get their Article 15 or whatever the case is. So that's how
That's a
we end up
hard
in.
thing, though. That's
It is.
hard. That's hard to be like, this person is getting and I don't mean to cut you off.
Yeah.
Like, I can't imagine, because I can already hear it. This person's actions resulted in this, like, repercussion of getting an Article 15. Why do I deserve to give them treatment of any kind when
Yeah.
they've done this to themselves? I can already hear it.
Yeah.
Like, sucks to suck. They shouldn't have done
Right.
that,
It's taken me a long time to get to this position as a person, as an officer, as a doctor,
Mhm.
to look at these situations, and look at through the emotional, like the emotions you have when you hear this, and be
Mhm.
like, you know what, here's the big picture. And that, the beards controversy, that's another big one. Like there's a lot of emotions that ran into that, right? And you saw them,
Pseudofolliculitis.
pseudofolliculitis barbae and the keloids, all that stuff, right? And like I have TikToks out there, like my opinion about it as a doctor, as a person, and that. You and I were talking about Caleb, and his ideas about VA benefits and that.
Caleb Hammer. Yeah, I've been stirring. I've never stirred the pot before, but I'm stirring the pot
You
with
just,
him. And I love it. Well, and just because, like, I long story short, we had maintenance tell our
yeah,
clinic, we want you to come out and see what we do because of what they deal with. And a lot of the doctors were like surprised about some of the carcinogens and the oils that can
yeah,
come from the planes and different things. And then we had
yeah.
in the Air Force, our cooks are also mortuary assistants. So it's like, oh,
Oh,
these cooks don't even do anything. Yeah, when they deploy, they are the ones that go bag and tag the bodies, which a
okay.
lot of people don't know. So it's like, oh, you're just a cook.
I
And
did.
yeah, let's go
That
Air Force. Let's shout out to our cooks working hard.
that's a weird combination.
Hopefully they don't mix together. They use a different freezer,
Yeah,
but but just as kind of go in line with your saying, there are like these little different like perceptions. But yeah, Caleb
yeah,
Hammer, that's my most recent side quest, and I'm enjoying it very, very much. And it was so cool because when I posted like a video, which is like, Caleb Hammer, like, they won't let me stop making videos about you. Like the next day, like the Department of the VA, like followed me, and I'm actually working
yeah.
with them on some stuff. So I was
Good.
like, oh my God, this looks so legit.
There's
Stupid
this.
stuff.
When you look at a lot of these issues that we have, you can see it just in our country in general, right? There's a lot of emotions going around right now, a lot of emotional like investment in these arguments and that.
Mhm.
And it's hard not to have like emotions when you talk about VA benefits, about this feeling that like there's so many people cheating the system, or beers, like so many people walk around beers that don't deserve them, right?
Yeah.
Like I said, it's taken me a long time to kind of get away from that emotions and look at for the reality of it, right?
Mhm.
Let's say VA benefits, talking about the Caleb issue, like say is fraud, right? At the end of
Mhm.
the day, how much does it really matter? You have 24 hours in a day. You have say $100 the VA has to make sure that they're giving proper care and all that other stuff. How much that
Mhm.
money is worth investing to go find fraud? Like if there's only one person out of every 100, is it worth it to go after? Like, yeah, of course there's people, but should the rest of them be punished for it? Should he have the stigma associated with it? And the answer to that
Mhm.
is no. Like VA benefits for people that raise their hand, 1% of the population say, I am willing to go potentially die for my country.
Mhm.
This is a pretty simple, like straightforward, like as an Apache pilot, I fired missiles that cost $80,000. Not a single person like raised their hand, like, should you be firing that missile, right? Yet we see all this stuff. We're like, that guy can't have a beard, and like that person's committing fraud. Like who knows? You could have somebody who's infantry for 20 years, not have a single issue going on with them, right? You could have that 6-month-old cook that tears their ACL and can't walk right for the rest of their life.
You could have someone in basic training, and a lot of people don't know this. And I haven't necessarily verified, but I'm pretty sure it's true from the stories I've heard. But people that get hurt in basic training, they can qualify for VA disability. And for example, in the Army, the rope tower, I've heard stories about people where their battle buddy didn't belay them and they fell the whole way down, paralyzed from the back down. And the drill sergeants were like, well, damn, that's going to be 100%, disability. And a lot of civilians don't like that. Now, should those people go off and call themselves a soldier if they didn't finish? Probably not. But disability-wise.
But again, it kind of goes into that, like at the end of the day, how much does it really matter? You call yourself a veteran, not a veteran, whatever the case is.
Yeah.
It's how do we take care of people that say, hey, I am willing to potentially die for my country, regardless if it's 6 months in versus 20 years in.
Interesting. That's an interesting take.
Like
it takes a year because
it is
a little different from mine, but I like it. I like hearing that. I like hearing that.
I think we sometimes get wrapped around these minor issues so much that we forget about the big picture. And the big picture is we're here to take care of people. And even if we have fraud and we have that stuff going on, is it worth going after these people or affecting other good people who are doing it? Probably not. Not at all. Like there's majority of people that get VA benefits, they deserve them. The VA has a very set way they do stuff. They're very good at what they do. And yes, there is like people who don't think they're being treated fairly and all that stuff, but there are processes in place to kind of deal with that. So to stigmatize a whole group of people saying, hey, you shouldn't get VA benefits because you didn't deploy or whatever the case is, at the end of the day, none of that really matters. Like you raise your hand, you joined. And that's the least that I think, in my opinion, that the nation could do for people who do something that 99% of the population does not do. So
Preach. Period. 100%.
Oh, we're in the South.
Say it. I know. Say it again.
So I come from Wisconsin. I was born in Washington State, grew up in Wisconsin. The first time I was ever in the South was when I went to basic training. And I did that cool thing. A lot of people probably did. On Sundays, you figured out where the best food was, right?
What?
So I wandered. Oh, you didn't do this? Oh,
you had options for food?
We had options. So I'm Catholic. I'm not a great Catholic by any means. But I would go we go to Catholic. It'd be like, oh, they have cookies, right? And then I remember the Jewish service was like the bomb. They had bagels and everything, right? So I was skipping. Eventually I was selected, 6 of us were selected to go to a Baptist church. I've never been I'm not from the South, right? It blew my mind. People started getting up and they were singing, the arms were flailing. I was like, what the heck is happening right now?
Very, very soulful.
Very soulful. They had food at the end. I was like, I am just a small town boy from Wisconsin. Can I come here more often?
That is so cool. That's adorable. Yeah. I like that. I like that you had options. That's really.
The Jewish service, I don't know if that's true, but they had the best food.
Well, kosher food's actually pretty good. I'm not gonna.
It is.
I'm not gonna lie. There, it's pretty good. Yeah.
It is. That's a lot of cool little journeys throughout my military career, and that.
That's really exciting. And I prepped this last minute, and I don't have to include this, but I had a little VA quiz I wanted to give you.
Oh God.
Because it's out of your niche. It is. VA is different. And this isn't oh, you're not a good doc if you don't know this. This is kind of just five questions, A or B. Do you want to give it a try just before we wrap things up?
Yeah, let's see how I do.
Okay. It's super simple. So it has to deal with disability ratings, and it's just which one do you think is going to be rated higher? That's all this is. Okay. So I'll just pick the top 5. Okay. So which one do you think you'll have a higher VA rating for? An overactive bladder, aka urinary incontinence, or degenerative disc disease? Which one do you think can get a higher percentage in the VA?
I would say, so degenerative disc disease typically involves a range of motion issues and how many attacks you have and that for the VA. I would say probably the overactive bladder would get a higher rating.
Good job. Yeah. Okay. So
Too fun.
overreactive bladder, yeah, it can get up to 50. Oh, sorry, it can get up to 60%. And then degenerative disc disease is 20 to 50, depending
Yeah.
on the range of motion. But 10 to 20 is actually the most common for degenerative disc disease.
Sounds about right.
Okay, good job.
I'd rather have the disc disease. Peeing myself doesn't sound fun.
Or like waking up 20 times in the middle of the night to.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, that's not fun. Dang it! I thought I was gonna get you with that one. Okay, shoot. Okay,
Went over it. Public
all right.
school.
Right. Okay. Second one, higher rating, allergic rhinitis. That's allergies, right?
Yeah, it could be caused by a couple different things, but yeah.
Okay. So
runny nose.
Runny nose. Thank you. That's what it was. Or TBI.
TBI.
TBI. So allergic rhinitis can hit 30% with severe obstruction. TBI is anywhere from 10 to 40, and 100% is really rare. So it's.
Oh, you get. Oh, I didn't know you could get 100% for TBI.
So TBI, if it's, I believe if that's like you are messed, like you can't.
Yeah, you would have to be really messed up. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, I'm sure other things would physically be wrong with you if you had a TBI of like 100%. And this is all grokked. Okay. So I take no accountability for this. Okay. So, oh my God, this one's okay. We're not going to do that one. Okay. Two more. Plantar fasciitis or arthritis / osteoarthritis.
Osteoarthritis versus plantar fasciitis. I wonder, do they break you up into types of osteoarthritis? Because I feel like having knee osteoarthritis is a lot worse than having like elbow or something like that. I have to pick one though, huh?
I don't think, Grok didn't go that far. I didn't realize I was going to be talking to an ortho.
For some reason, something tells me that like plantar fasciitis, you probably get a lot of VA benefits from. I see it a lot. It's a very common problem. But I feel like enough patients have told me like, yeah, you get like a decent amount with that. What's the ratings?
So plantar fasciitis, 30 to 50 if it's bilateral with service connection. And then arthritis is 10 to 20 based on limited motion.
Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds about right what they.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds about what the patient's been telling me. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Last one. GERD. GERD or hypertension.
Ooh, GERD, the old white man disease. Not that I'm speaking from experience or anything, because I'm young and that. I'm going to have to go with GERD. GERD, you get a pretty good amount.
Yep.
If it's not controlled, that.
Yep, you're absolutely right. So GERD up to 60% for severe symptoms, while hypertension maxes out at about 20% unless it causes heart problems.
I don't wish GERD on anyone.
No.
I can't stop drinking coffee though. I have horrible self-control.
But you have it after food though, right? You have stomach in your food?
Yeah, I also like spicy. I also don't worry, we're judging. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I like spicy food too. I can't control myself. So I pay the price.
In Korea, they live really great lives, and they have kimchi and a lot of spicy food. So and it's good for anti-inflammatory. I think the spiciness.
It is. Random facts: gastric cancer rates in Asia in general are about 5 times higher than in the U.S. and that. So in their system, what you do is every year you get essentially scoped and that because it's such a high rate. Yeah. It's because they think it's because of spicy foods and that kind of stuff that they eat. So it's super healthy, but they have higher rates of gastric cancer in that.
Wow. Interesting.
Facts.
That's good job, Doc.
This is a knowledge train over here. Yeah.
Yeah. Good knowledge train. Okay. But before we sign off, where can people find you? I know you have a TikTok. Yeah.
I do have an Instagram. I'll be honest. I mainly just do all my stuff on TikTok. I have a YouTube also, but I just don't have enough time.
What's the YouTube channel? I'm going to put it here. I'm going to put it right here.
Oh gosh.
What is it?
I'm going to have to send that. I think it's not service connected at YouTube or wherever it is, but
okay.
I pretty much only do TikTok. I just don't have enough time to do all this cool stuff, and I'm not technical savvy like you guys are. So maybe one day. You're making TikToks.
You're tech savvy enough. You got it.
But yeah, mainly TikTok, and people can DM me if they have questions, all that stuff. I'm more than happy. There's a lot of people that ask me about waivers and their situations, and I kind of give them guidance on how to deal with it. And that includes not just service members, but family members, people who are interested to go be pilots, who are infantry, who want to go to medical school, you name it. Like I answer them best I can. But that's really at the end of the day why I do all this stuff, is because I do like mentoring and helping people as they go along, and hopefully I'm making a positive change and difference in people's lives. So
you
yeah.
are. That you are.
Well,
This
thank
was
you.
so awesome. This was so informative, and shame on me for not knowing like everything about you. I was definitely blown away by your career. It's very, very impressive. But I think you definitely are. And it's like, yeah, people can listen to medic videos all day, but when it's a doc, it's like time to lock in. What's the military doc know? I know they know everything. Tell me everything.
There's a lot of stuff I don't know. I'm very, very clear about that. But I think as a doctor, as medics, where we are, our goal is to always provide compassionate care for our patients and do the best that we can, especially in a system that isn't necessarily designed to give that compassionate care. That sometimes real frowned upon, expects people to be performance athletes, but then frowns upon them having performance athletes injuries and that. So yeah, it's a small bit, and hopefully I'm making a small little change in the military before I get out in the next 3.5 years. So
Yay!
not that I'm counting down.
Yay! Take 6 months off for skill bridge. So technically, like,
oh yeah, true that.
Yeah, take that off
think,
skill bridge plus the leave that you can put on top of that before that. Cough, cough.
True that.
You know.
I was watching, I don't know if you follow, her name is Big Jew. She's currently transitioning out of the military, and she's talked about all these cool like skill bridge options. And one was like scuba diving. And I was like, that seems legit. I want to do that.
I want to go skill. What is it? Scuba? I want to go scuba dive.
I want to pick the most random skill bridge possible. Nothing to do with medicine. I want to be like, I'm going to go plumb, or like be a plumber for like 6 months or something cool, like
go do astronaut. Do something with NASA.
You know, the random thing, there's one other pilot physician that I know of in the Army. He was a former Black Hawk pilot. Name's Frank Rubio, Colonel 06. He's an astronaut. Like most pilot physicians end up, for some odd reason, they track into the astronaut corps. There's something wrong. I don't want to go to Mars, though. I like Earth. I wouldn't mind going to the moon. I'm not going to Mars. That's not for me. So
we have an Army astronaut doctor.
We do.
And the Space Force didn't kidnap him yet.
I think we have 2 Army astronauts. One is a normal physician, and then the other is a physician pilot. So he's kind of done to, I think they're both 06s now. Yeah. So it's very common to pilot physicians in the Army to go with the astronaut corps. So yeah, those days are long gone for me. I guess I'm like the average age of astronaut. Don't give me that awe.
No. Go be the astronaut. Go do it.
Nope. I've already lost enough height in the military. I don't need to lose more from rocket launches.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you to Army Doc, Mr. Captain Major Allen.
Captain, not Major yet.
Soon to be Major. Pew.